technical difficulties. We want to make sure and resolve those before we get started, including starting today, we are supposed to have live captioning available, but I do not see it. Is there, oh, I do see a tab for show captioning. But I am not certain how it is, what I need to do to enable captioning, because we do have our captioner with us.
So Lindsay is assigned as the captionist. Let's see.
Okay, but I'm not seeing captioning. So one thing I will say, if I'm not mistaken, Lindsay is here, correct?
Yes.
And is she actually, even though we don't see it, she is present and participating to provide cart services, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just going to have to say that, you know, I apologize to folks who require the live captioning currently. We have technical difficulties, but I also want to present to people that we have another little challenge today, which is I am in an all-day meeting out of town. I have a 1-hour break. And so I'm with you for 1 hour with a sort of jam-packed agenda today. And so the live captioning, which I see a whole bunch of things down at the bottom now, but none of them seem to allow me to show the captions. So a live caption transcript will be available later for people to review, and I'm sorry to do it in this manner. And my hope is that we will have the opportunity before next month's meeting to get this done correctly. So starting off, I just briefly want to share with people so the agenda today is I'm going to talk briefly about the COVID data. And then I'm going to do our presentation this month will be about DDS's budget. And then we also have presentations. Kevin Wright is going to speak about the upcoming Employment First Summit. Crystal and a guest will speak about the World Cafe, and then about services that are offered through, I just blanked on the name. Someone can speak up and say the name for me.
Job Corps.
Job Corps, thank you. So, and because of our difficulties today, I will be sharing my screen, and I'm just on this little computer, so I'll have some challenge with seeing comments as I go. So first off, as I said, let me just briefly walk through where we are with I had a little, oh, there it is right there, that green one. Someone added a whole bunch of buttons down at the bottom so that I was having some trouble finding share screen. There we go. If someone can just confirm that you can see my screen.
I can see
Yes.
it.
Thank you. So first up, we do continue to see, you know, positive COVID cases amongst the people we support. The total number of people who've contracted COVID is up to 709 of the people supported by DDA, including 18 who have tested positive in September. By placement type, what's reflected is 1 person in a corrections facility, 18 in host homes, 130 in intermediate care facilities, 1 in a mental health facility, 153 in natural homes, 2 in a nursing home, 6 in out-of-state placements, 60 in residential habilitation placements, and 338 in supported living. Fortunately, of the people who have contracted COVID over the past month, none of them have required hospitalization. In fact, in most cases that I've reviewed in the last week, everyone had either mild symptoms or no symptoms. Mostly it was people with mild symptoms, very few people asymptomatic from the recent people who contracted COVID. By placement type in September, we had 2 people in ICFs, 1 in a res hab, 8 in supported living, and 6 in natural homes. And in terms of confirmed deaths that are specifically related to COVID, there have been 38 since the beginning of the pandemic. And the most recent person who died, and it was a confirmed COVID death, was one person who died in September of 2021. Vaccination rates, and we may at some point have to be adjusting how we report on these. I'll explain in 1 second. Amongst people that we support, 88% have been vaccinated. This represents 99% of people in host homes, 99.6% of people in ICFs, 78% of people in natural homes, 100% of people in residential habilitation, 94% in supported living. People who have received at least 1 booster is 77% of people. Among our provider staff, 97% have been vaccinated. Of those eligible for a booster, 70% have received a booster. Among DDS staff, 98% have been vaccinated and 90% have received a booster. And that number actually went down just a little bit. However, it may have gone down because the district, based on a suit that was before the DC Superior Court by the Metropolitan Police Department employees, has suspended the vaccination requirement, and therefore people are not having to report that they received the booster. So we don't know whether that 90% is an accurate reflection of the current experience in DDS or not. Next up, so today I have a budget presentation. And what I would like to do is share some information with people about our DDS budget. We're doing it at a little different time this year, and I'll explain that in just a moment. Just so people know who work with us on the planning, I can't see right this minute whether she's with us yet. I have invited Angelique Martin from DHCF to join us. She also had a conflict today, but she's going to make an effort sometime within the 12 o'clock hour to join us, so that if there are any questions regarding the ARPA initiative and that spending, particularly related to the DSP wage, people can type in those questions and Angelique will respond. She and I have spoken about this, and so I'm confident that I can respond to them as well. But she, I expect, should be here during this hour, and she will then, of course, herself be able to respond to questions. So with just one screen, it makes it a little, okay, good. If people could confirm that they can see the DDS Community and Provider Forum screen.
Yes, we.
Thank you. So what I'm going to talk about this morning is the budget process, an overview of our FY23 budget, and then the DDS, the big picture of the DDS budget, and then hear from people any questions you have, but also hear your priorities for the coming year in terms of our budget. Each year when the mayor presents her budget, she also presents sort of the budget process, which, just so people are aware, it's not a question of whether we are in budget season in the District of Columbia. It is which budget season are we in. And for the upcoming budget and the existing budget, we're always at a little bit different time. We are about to begin preparation for the FY24 budget. People may know FY24 starts October 1, 2023. And we begin our planning for that in October of 2022. It's a long process, involves a lot of players. Preparation for the budget includes community engagement, agency budget roundtables, council input, and then the mayor's budget is presented. And then there is legislation. The mayor's budget is transmitted to the council. The council has their hearings. There's a vote on the budget. It's enacted, and as people are aware, has to go to the Congress for approval. Agencies get their budgets, and then we also begin the process of accountability. We have ongoing performance management. The mayor's accountability report, which I think, and the CAFR audit, they come out early in the calendar year following the fiscal year. And so how does DDS's process fit into this? And this is the reason, actually, that I wanted for us. We typically have a budget presentation before the budget hearing so that we can educate people about the mayor's approved budget for DDS so that you're prepared to be able to go in and testify before council about the budget as presented by the mayor.
May I fix up, may I send them back? 2 changes more I can make.
And so,
because I know that's what they got.
Yeah, thank you. I'm hoping, and Khalil, if you could give me the thumbs up if you can hear me. Thank you, because that's the only person I can see on the side of my screen. Okay, so typically we do a budget presentation after the mayor's budget is complete. And what we wanted to do this year is begin to hear from people. So, help educate people about our budget and begin to hear from people about priorities so that we ensure that as we develop the budget with the mayor's office, that we're taking into account all of the views of the stakeholders for DDS. And so our budget process is that in mid-October, we receive what is called our MARC. That's the maximum allowable request ceiling. And so the mayor's Office of Budget Planning, Office of Budget and Performance Management, there's an M missing there, through economic forecasting, makes a determination about what the city's budget will be 1 fiscal year from now. So that's a projection about where we will be beginning in October 2023 through September 2024. And based on those projections, agencies get what's called a MARC. And so, we have to then construct our budget to meet that MARC. Our preliminary budget is usually due to the Office of Budget and Performance Management by mid-November, which usually falls like right before Thanksgiving. And then in December, we have budget roundtables where the agency, staff from Deputy Mayor's Office and the Office of Budget and Performance Management get together and talk about the budget that we've presented. Included in our budget is both how are we going to make adjustments in our budget to meet our FY24 MARC, and are there any enhancements in our budget for which we are requesting additional funds. Enhancements would be additional initiatives. As an example, in FY25, and I'll talk about this in just a moment, but in FY25, which we'll be preparing for FY25 a year from now, we will be preparing an enhancement request in order to incorporate the DSP wage bill and the requirements of being able to get the waiver rates up to the necessary level that providers can pay the DSP wage rate at 117.6%, beginning October 1, 2024. Yeah, October 1, 2024. And so as we are developing that FY25 budget, we will ask for additional funds for that purpose. Our mark is to just meet the basic, to continue doing all the services we're doing now. What will it cost us going into the next year? Along with, if the city's looking at financial outlook over the following year, is there some belt tightening required? And if so, how are we going to continue to do the work given that necessary belt tightening? As people are aware, in February, the mayor has community meetings where it's so important that people get out and communicate to her what the priorities of the community are, so that as she's considering the budget that we have sat down at our budget roundtable to present, she first hears from the community, she then reviews the information from the budget roundtables. So it's important for people to get out there and make known what their priorities are. Her final budget is then complete the third week of March and is transmitted to council. We'll then have another forum like this. We'll present what the final budget was. The budget hearing will then be in April. Council votes in June. Budget is enacted in October. 2 weeks later, we start the whole process for the following year. So looking at the FY23 approved budget for DDS, overall funds, $197 million are approved. $197.9 million are in our FY23 budget. What you can see from this chart is that the largest portion of our budget is the Developmental Disabilities Administration, which takes up $147 million of the $197 million. Following behind that is Rehabilitation Services Administration. And those are the two areas that I'm going to talk about today, because those are really about the funds we use to provide services to the people that we support. The Disability Determination Division, the budget's is $12.6 million in FY23. Those are 100% federal funds, and those are based on the amount that is necessary for us to perform the Social Security work of determining medical eligibility for SSI or SSDI. And if there's more work that Social Security asks us to take on, they allocate more funds. So I'm not going to spend any time today on that. Agency management are all of the support functions in our agency that help us do the work to support the people. So that includes HR, some of our quality functions, our Office of the Chief of Staff, our operations, our general counsel's office. All of those are part of this $14.7 million. Financial operations are the positions that are funded in the Office of the Chief Financial Officer, both at our agency and at New York Avenue. And then we have a small $98,000 that's going into the following 2 fiscal years to continue to support our telehealth initiative through some of the mayor's office ARPA funds that are available. What is really helpful to look at as well is within that $197 million budget, it is primarily made up of local funds. $136 million of our budget are local funds. We also have what are called special purpose revenue funds. That would include the biggest portion of that, Social Security, where we are rep payee and receive funds on behalf of people. And we use those funds to pay for residential supports for the folks for whom we receive them. We have federal grant funds that we receive that support the developmental disabilities, the Disability Determination Division, and the larger portion of this is the VR grant for RSA. We also get federal Medicaid payments, and those are some of our staff and some of our contracts where they do work that supports people who receive Medicaid. We do administrative claiming, and we estimate that in FY23, those payments will amount to $14.4 million. And as I said before, there's the ARPA dollars of $98,000. Now, as I said, the biggest part of our budget is The Developmental Disabilities Administration, as people know, currently we're supporting a little more than 2,300 people with intellectual disabilities. We are about to open the door for all people with developmental disabilities. I'll just take a brief moment to give people an update on this. And I am aware, usually I watch the interpreter. It's a little more difficult today. I'm on one screen and not seeing everything. I feel like I'm talking very fast because I'm aware of the clock because I'm time limited. But I do want to give people a brief update. We have sent out letters this week to all people who were determined ineligible for our services for DDA services in the last 3 years to advise them that we are going to be changing the eligibility criteria and that they may want to consider applying again. We've provided them some information about that so that they can gather their documents and reapply. We had a very productive meeting last Friday with the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. Everyone is working together, I will say, DHCF, CMS, and DDS, to see that everything is complete so that our waiver renewal and our waiver amendment will be able to take effect October 1. As soon as we get actual written confirmation of that, we will then post something online with the specific information about opening the door for our expanded eligibility. So, DDA's total budget is $147.8 million. Local funding for DDA is $125.3 million. So the largest portion of their budget, as you can see, is coming from local dollars. And so I want to take a couple minutes to walk people through what that means. So the DDA local funds budget, as you can see, oops, there we go, good. The DDA local funds budget, which is $125.3 million. The total agency local funds budget is $136 million. So DDA's portion of the agency's local funds budget is 92%. And if you look at how DDA spends those funds, 86% of those local funds are going to direct services. I had the percentages and they're not in front of me, and I'm sorry about that. So about 14%, frankly. 14% goes to personnel. That's about $17.4 million. And then about $100,000 goes to staff, travel, and training. And within the direct services budget, so for direct services in DDA, what we call comp source group 50. So all of our direct service funds for DDA, it accounts for $125.9 million. Is spent on direct services. Of that $125.9 million that is spent on direct services, 86% comes from local funds. So it's $107.8 million from local funds are spent on direct services. $11.4 million comes from program income in FY23, and that is, as I said, that's Social Security funds, where we're the rep payee, and those come to us and then go to support people in residential supports. And about 5% of the funds, $6.7 million, comes from Medicaid, where we get administrative claiming for Medicaid. And so when you look at, as I said, there's the portion that is direct services for people. And if you look at what those direct services are that we're funding, 76% of that direct service budget 95.7 million in FY23 is going to pay for the local share of the waiver services. 22% of that, or about 27.6 million, goes to pay for residential supports. And then 2% goes to pay for other contracts. And those other contracts include things like death investigation, interpreter services, transportation, our PCR, and some of our professional consulting contracts. And when you look at residential supports, as you can see, we spend 27. If everyone could please
Hey, my brother, Mr. ID, how are you?
put themselves on mute. With the presentation in front of me, it's very difficult for me to unmute. So if people can remember to keep themselves on mute, thank you. Unless you're going to have a question when we get to that time. And so when we look at residential supports, the breakdown of how that is funded is roughly 40% for residential supports is coming from local funds. About 38% comes from people's Social Security, and about 22% is coming from Medicaid earnings. So something I expect people are very interested in at this point in time, especially as we expand eligibility. Beginning once our waiver amendment and waiver renewal are approved, these are the number of slots that we will have. We've asked that the effective date be October 1, and so we'll start the new waiver year on that effective date, but we have to have confirmation of what the effective date is. But whatever the first date of the effective date is, in our IDD waiver, we will have 1,943 slots, and in our IFS waiver, we will have 90 slots. As of today, we're utilizing 1,800. That's actually a mistake. As of today, we are utilizing 1,834 slots in our IDD waiver and 10 slots in our IFS waiver. And so we overall have 189 slots available once we start the new fiscal year. I thought it was really instructive to present to people sort of the waiver growth over these years. And as you can see from this chart, the growth in cost has been pretty consistent over since 2016. You can see down at the bottom of the screen from 2016 to today. So beginning in FY16, we had 1,651 people receiving waiver services, and this went up 33 slots. We served 33 additional people net in FY17, 50 additional people by FY18, 86 additional people by FY19. And then as the pandemic came, the number of people supported has flattened out. At the beginning of FY20, we were at 1,831 slots. And as I said a moment ago, we are actually currently at 1,834 slots. So there's been overall waiver, I'm sorry, is 1,844 between IDD and IFS waivers. And so that we've only added 10 people in the last year, which is more than we added the year before. In spite of that, however, we have seen since FY19 an increase of at least 10% in the cost, the overall cost for the waiver every year. The red line at the bottom has been our local share, and this has been affected by the enhanced federal match that's been paid since we've been in a public health emergency and since beginning for 1 year from March 1, 2021, from April 1, 2021 through March 31, 2022. We also got an enhanced federal match of 10%. And the savings from that allowed us to set funds aside to fund a number of different ARPA initiatives. And included in those ARPA initiatives that we were able to fund First off, and I'm going to talk more about this once I finish the whole list, implementing the Direct Support Professional Payment Rate Act. And it allowed us to add $11.6 million in FY23 and FY24 in order to slowly move wages across the city for a number of different positions, up to 117.6 of the living wage or minimum wage, whichever is higher. These funds are also allowing us to provide a second round of DSP bonus payments, which those have been going out, hiring and retention bonuses and reimbursement for vaccine incentives and PPE. And those are in process right now. And we should have more specific news coming up soon, but those are also moving along. Strengthening our capacity to carry out DD expansion, which it has allowed us to hire additional eligibility staff, a new community liaison, to contract with a neuropsychologist to assist in the eligibility process, and also to provide technical assistance to our staff as they develop the addition, and to have a supervisor for our eligibility unit and to provide technical assistance to staff around working with the expanded population. It's allowed us to hire a housing coordinator to maximize opportunities for people supported by DDA to live more independently in their own housing. Strengthening supports for people with IDD and behavioral health needs. And I just have to say, I think that we've been doing some really great training and technical assistance, not just for DDA and provider staff and also DBH staff, but beyond that, CFSA staff, other staff who work with people in the community with intellectual and developmental disabilities and behavioral health needs to improve the capacity of the system across the city for responding to our population. We also are using our HCBS ARPA funds in addition to the ARPA funds that were provided by the mayor to implement our telehealth initiative, which we've talked some about here, so I won't talk a lot about it, but the goal of that is to reduce the utilization of emergency rooms and to reduce the incidence of emergency unplanned inpatient hospitalizations. We're going to be conducting a rate study regarding the adequacy of our reimbursement and our IFS and IDD waivers. We have begun working with an agency that's conducting a study of the effects of the pandemic on people supported by DDA, and we will be implementing self-direction in the IFS waiver. One note about that, another little update for people, is that in order for us to implement this in the waiver that should become effective very soon. We're hoping for October 1, but it could be sometime a little later than that. I mean, can't guarantee it will be October 1, although everyone is doing their best to make that occur. Self-direction relies on an updated contract that DHCF has with the agency that coordinates the staffing for those services for people. And that amendment to their contract will likely not occur until at least January. January is what it's looking like right now, but I would say at least January. So we're not going to be able to provide that particular service in the IFS waiver until that contract, I'm forgetting the name of that, of what the service is called, but until that is in place.
Consumer Direct, you mean, Mr.
Not
Reese?
the name of the agency. I mean the name of the service. What are they called?
Participant Directed Services, PDS.
No, what that agency provides.
Support Broker and Financial Management
Thank
Services.
you. The support.
Sorry.
So the support broker and a contract for an agency that will be the support broker should be in place with a support broker that can support our folks beginning, we expect, in January of 2023. So let me just peek for one moment at the chat to see if there were any questions from people. Thank you, Robin. I just got to the chat, the financial intermediary. And Grace has posted where people can get the captioning for people that are wanting to connect to live captioning. These slides will all be available for people. I'm gonna guess by next week. Okay, I don't see any questions so far, so I will move on. Next, RSA. So as people know, RSA is there to help all people with disabilities to prepare for, obtain, maintain, and advance in employment. RSA's total budget is $20.6 million. Their budget is, we usually say 80-20 federal, local. That's the requirement, is that there be it's actually 78.7 and 21.3 for whatever reason. And so that's the requirement, is that the state must support it with at least 21.3% of the total cost of the program. Now, in the District of Columbia, that 21.3% for FY23 represents about $4.2 million. We have always been what we refer to as overmatched. The District of Columbia has always provided more support to the vocational rehabilitation program than what was required by law. The challenge that creates is that not only do we have within RSA a requirement to match at 21.3% the total cost, but we are also required to maintain effort. And the maintenance of effort requirement means that we are required, for example, in FY22, our local support for the program has to be equal to plus $1 what our local support was for the program 2 years prior. So if you look at the chart right now, the fiscal year 20 local expenditures in FY20, far right column, $8.593,447. That sets our maintenance of effort amount for FY22, which is $8,593,448. Now, what you'll notice is our budgeted amount for FY22 is just $7.3 million. So what happens at the end of the year is, in order to meet our maintenance of effort, we look at what our total expenditures were for local funds for RSA, and then we look at other local expenditures the agency has made that have directly benefited the vocational rehabilitation program, such as the rent space for the specific VR staff. And so some things then get charged to the VR grant to help us meet our maintenance of effort requirement. We have so far met the maintenance of effort, and as I said, have never had an issue with meeting the match each year. So what felt like something of a sprint, and it's now only 12:45. So the other thing I want to say is, as I was planning to do this today, I thought, in spite of the fact that I was going to be not in town and in an all-day meeting that had a 1-hour break for lunch, I thought we really have to do it today to give us time, because we get our mark in October, and I really want to hear from people. I also appreciate, with the sprint that I just did through this, that's a lot of information to take in at once. And so I do want to give people an opportunity we do our planning session for this meeting the second Friday of the month. So if you saw particular things that you want me to drill down on more next month, please let us know by the second Friday of October, and then we can plan for that and have some further presentation then. As I'm saying this, I am remembering that I promised to say more about something and forgot to do so. And so the one thing I did want to say a little bit more about was because people have asked questions about this, the first ARPA initiative that I mentioned. which was to implement the DSP Wage Act. And so, as I said, the mayor instructed us to allocate $11.6 million this year and next year from our ARPA savings and the way that this is going to work is in October, DHCF will be sending out to all providers a template that they need to complete. And that template is going to ask them about numbers of FTEs and current employees who are DSPs. They'll provide the definition of DSP. And this is more of an issue. So this is not just an initiative for DDS or DDA. It is across the city and it affects a number of different positions. But for our purposes, it affects DSPs and DSP wages. So they're going to be asking about the numbers, the number of positions, the number of people, and the wages that are currently paid. And then based on those numbers of positions across all the agencies that have this class of employees in the district, they will divide up that 11.6 million. They'll do one allotment in January of 2023. And that allotment will allow the agencies, based on the amount they get and the number of employees, to increase the wages of their DSPs by the amount allowed by that allotment. And then the following October, they will do the same thing over again. There will be another 11.6 allotment the following January. Same process will occur. As I said before, our anticipation is that in our budget development for FY25 that we will be working on in October and November of 2024, we will be asking for an enhancement, and DHCF will take all the information from those templates and the information that's been provided by the provider agencies about number of staff and wages so that we know how much we have to ask for an enhancement for our FY25 budget so that we can then do an amendment in our waiver, and our waiver will at that time will include the wages that are 117.6% of the living, or will be an average of 117.6% above the minimum or living wage, whichever is higher. So if there are any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. I think I said at the beginning, I am only here for 9 more minutes. But if there aren't questions, I'd like to invite Kevin now to talk about the upcoming Employment First Summit. Kevin Wright.
Hello there. Can you give me the option just to share,
You have
if that's possible?
You should have Sharon right.
I was just gonna share the flyer, that's all.
If you look down at the bottom of your screen, it should be lit up in green, a tab that you can hit share screen. Do you see that?
Okay, give me a second. There we go. I hope you all can see this. So my
We
name
see
is
it.
Cameron White. I work for the DC Developmental Disability Council. And I just show you guys the flyer. So this is the official flyer for the DC Employment First Summit. That's going to take place on October the 20th and the 21st from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. on October 20th and 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. on October 21st. Basically, this year theme, so this is the first inaugural summit. With the Employment First Plans Committee I was leading ever since January, we pretty much put it on this first inaugural summit. part of the DD Council 5-year stamp plan that was passed last year, highlighted by the Department First, the 10-year anniversary of the Department First was part of the state plan for this year. Basically also was part of it was employment initiatives. So I was currently leading those employment first initiatives for the state plan all this year. So as you see, my event back in March, that is Kevin Meets Employment World. That was part of this. That was part of the startup for this summit, and also on the World Cafe, just introducing the Employment First Summit was also too. Basically, we're looking at this to celebrate the accomplishments of individuals with disabilities gaining meaningful employment. We'll look back over the progress made in the last 10 years to highlight shared goals and priorities for supporting DC's development, disability, community, and employment. So that is pretty much the most focus point of the summit. This year, have a group of variety of people come together, share goals, and basically look at the next 5 years of supporting individuals through employment. In this Employment for Summit, we are targeting teachers, employers for DC and federal, parents, self-advocates, students, providers, and many more people who does a lot of work with the idea of employment first. Basically, it was just really was important for me just to bring everyone on, just to see this summit, because I know that for myself, with my employment journey, it was really important to me, and basically, and I know that like a lot of people helped me out through the way with this employment journey. So basically, I want to give highlights to like I want everyone just to come, just to just to recognize the great accomplishments that DC done over the 10 years. So basically, this summit gonna be at MLK Library. It's gonna be virtual. It's gonna be hybrid. So people have the option to either attend in person or either attend virtually. Basically, the idea also is for that first day, we're gonna have like really great preliminary sessions that will really focus on like really pretty much the hot topics, including customized employment. While that second day for October the 21st, it's gonna be more of strategic planning. Me and my fellow planning community, it's important for us that we want to dedicate the second day just to do strategic planning for the next 5 years. So basically, it's gonna be sessions where they're like group leaders, group agency leaders, providers, staffs could pretty much be in sessions where they could pretty much begin to start doing that process of planning for the next 5 years in their own agency, and how just to continue the whole effort of employment and try to make DC's disability community pretty much seek out employment. So as you see here, this is the registration form. So the registration is on Eventbrite, and basically, and this registration form is pretty much available. It's been available since the start of September. So anyone could go online and pretty much register. Registration is free, so basically it's no cost. As people have registered for this event, you would see questions in the registration order regarding whether or not if an individual going to attend both summits or only one summit, if they're going to attend it virtually or in person, and some other questions that could be answered. Basically, we got 3 flyers. So this is the English one, we got the Spanish one, and we got an Amharic version. And this event going to be in pretty much in English, Spanish. It has an ASL, and it's gonna be in Amharic. So if you guys have any Amharic networks, please do share this flyer to them. Also to the Latino community, because it's important, because especially for the job for the DD Council, us job is just to help support people around DC with resources, and basically we are in the planning community. pretty much highlighted that like we want to invite in Harwick and Latino community at the summit. So basically, if you all have any connections to those groups please do just begin to start sharing. And basically, with any questions, you can always get to contact me. You see my email and my work number, or you can always contact Allison White too, just with like additional questions or any requests and accommodations.
Kevin, there is one question. Will there be exhibitor tables?
So that's pretty
at this
much all I
event?
have that I wanted to share.
Kevin, there was one question in the chat for you. They wanted to know will there be exhibitor tables at this event? Kevin, can you hear us?
Oh, so Sandy, yes, there are exhibitor tables. Basically, I will share Charlisa, the exhibitor form that pretty much out and pretty much the call for presenters. Just in case if people want to present, but I do make sure that Charlisa shared that with you, Sandy, and to anyone
Thank you.
who's interested in being an exhibitor
Appreciate it.
for the summit.
All right, thank you, Kevin. We're going to go ahead and move on.
Any other questions? If not,
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and move into our presentation with Job Corps.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Khalil, we're ready whenever you are.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you
we
hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Okay, great. I want to tell you a little bit about Job Corps. Its mission is to attract young adults 16 to 24, teach them relevant skills needed to become employable and independent, and help prepare them for success in life by securing meaningful jobs or opportunities for further education. And some of those opportunities are either military, or we have advanced training, we have a career, you go into a career or you go to college. So those are the opportunities that Job Corps tries to provide for our students. One of the things that's important about this for DDS is that Job Corps, you're eligible for Job Corps if you have a disability or if you have an IEP at any age. So it's not just the 16 to 24 for people with disabilities. It's beyond, it's any age, they can come to Job Corps if they have a disability or an IEP. A little bit more about Job Corps. It's funded by the U.S. Department of Labor. More than 2.7 million young people have trained and been educated at Job Corps. More than 60,000 students enroll each year. There are 132 Job Corps all across the country, and there are more than 100,000 young Americans receive training and job placement annually. The program averages between 6 and 14 months. We can move on to Job Corps eligibility. One of the main things are you're committed to improving your education, need job skills, education, counseling, or related assistance to help get you started on a career pathway. Again, ages 16 to 24, you are a U.S. citizen, a legal resident, or a resident of the U.S. territory, and or authorized to work in the United States. And then there are other requirements. I'm going to cut this down a little bit for the sake of time. We're moving on to where we send students in the Philadelphia region. We recruit for the Philadelphia region and out of Potomac Job Corps, and that includes Kentucky, Pennsylvania, Maryland, DC, and Virginia. So that's the region that we recruit from. We're looking for students all over these areas to put into Job Corps and to get them trained up. Next slide. How Job Corps works. We're going to move on. We're talking about applicants are introduced to academic training, career technical training. That's actually the trade training. Life on the center, responsibilities. We have a zero tolerance policy for drugs and alcohol. Personal career development plan. We start off with them developing their own plan for career development. And then we have post-center services for employment. We do career transition services at the end for up to a year. We offer information session for people who want to come and find out about Job Corps. We do that every Wednesday at 11 o'clock. We encourage tours. If you see that, you can go virtually at https://potomacjobcorps.gov, or either you can go to https://recruiting.jobcorps.gov. So those sessions last about an hour, and we encourage you to take the tours or to have students come on center and see what Job Corps looks like. How Job Corps works. It's an 8-week period of planning. The My Pace period is introduction to center rules and safety. We give them an aptitude test and allow them to shadow 3 trades to determine which trade they would like to go into. We give them 3 trade options. If they're not satisfied after that, we'll allow them to shadow additional trades. Introduction to health and wellness. All your health and wellness issues, dental, are all paid for while you're at Job Corps. Employability and job search skills. We help them at the end of their training to find jobs and to update their career personal development plan. Okay, the career development period consists of career technical training, academics, work-based learning. Work-based learning is a program where they can work on a job while they're in Job Corps in the evenings. We also have employability and social skills, independent living skills, job search skills, community service activities, leadership opportunities, updated career development plan, and career transition readiness. So that's how Job Corps really works to get its students trained and employed. And some of the career pathways are advanced manufacturing, automotive and machine repair, construction, finance and business, healthcare, homeland security, hospitality, information technology, renewable resources and energy, retail sales and services, transportation, HVAC, electrical wiring, building construction technology are some of the fields that they can go into. And then, of course, life on the center, you can live either on the center or you can live in the community. So it's not a either or, it's your choice. And if you live on the center, you have Job Corps provides students with housing and dining services, counseling services, health and wellness services, transition services, including job placement assistance and recreational activities. Life on the center also includes drug and violence-free environment. We give them, the students, a stipend. If they come to live on center or off center, they get a stipend bi-weekly. And of course, they have uniforms. They get a uniform for their trades, child care allotment for students that have children. And then at the end of the program, they get a transitional allotment. And it also offers, Life on the Center offers Student Government Association, Student Ambassador Program, career area leadership opportunities, community service opportunities, local cultural outings, clubs, sports, movies, recreational opportunities are required for the first recreational event. And then the benefits of joining Job Corps: you learn and train for the job you would like to pursue, many trades to choose from, great support system, enjoy some recreational activities free of charge, free housing and meals, and again, the biweekly stipend. How Job Corps works: eligible students may receive up to 12 months of placement services after they leave the center. Assigned a CTS specialist, assist students in obtaining placement. This is somebody that's assigned to each student to help them find a job. Actually, we want them career attached before they leave the center. So that's what the CTS person does. CTS provides referrals to address students' transitional barriers. For example, if they don't have a car, or if they need transportation or housing, we assist with those things too. And then we verify the placement. And finally, I've included my information in terms of a phone number and email address, and also the recruiting information for Job Corps. Do we have any questions? Let's look at the chat. Yes, I think I answered that question. They do receive a stipend during the time they're in Job Corps. Any other questions?
What types of accommodations?
What type of accommodations? Are you talking about the disability accommodations?
Yes.
We have accommodations for students, including extra time for tests, things like that. Depending on what the IEP recommends, those are the accommodations we provide. Locations within DC. The location here is 1 DC Village Lane. That is the center here in Southwest Washington, DC. So it's 1 DC Village Lane, Southwest Washington, DC. It's right across the street from the police academy. They don't have to live on the center. They can live on the center, but they don't have to live on the center. You can live in the community and still come to Job Corps, or you can live on the center. It's a decision that you and your counselor can make. We have a counselor that will be assigned to you, and that's a decision that you and your counselor can make.
Do you have a list of the available jobs that they could do, or the trainings? If you can send it to us via email or otherwise.
Yes, I can. I can send you. I think it's included in the PowerPoint, but I noticed on that one that they didn't list some of the trades, for example, like HVAC or plumbing, and it's 11 different trades. I can send you the list.
Thank you. I'm here with a family, multiple families that are listening in for this. Thank you.
Okay. How many students do you typically take each year? We're in building back up after the pandemic. We normally have about 300 students on center at any given time, but we're now at about 120 or so students that we have on center at this time. So we're building back up our student, what we call our OBS, our onboard strength. So working to get that back up to, and so we're taking students in weekly. Every week we're taking students in. So there's plenty of slots open right now because we're trying to build back up our OBS from COVID.
Can you start while the child has not finished high school or still in high school? Is there any reciprocity in that?
You can actually start If you don't have a high school diploma, we don't do while they're in school, but they can come here and get their high school diploma or a GED. We have both programs here where you can either do high school or GED. And as long as you're 16 years old, you can come and get a high school diploma and a GED. Sorry. As far as the question concerning if a person is over 24 but has a disability, what documentation they need to provide to qualify for the program. We have an application, and within the application is things like birth certificate. You probably have to have a copy of your IEP if you have an IEP. If you have a disability, our wellness department will look at what those disabilities are and see how you best fit into the program and what we can offer you in terms of a trade and that type of thing. Yeah, we don't have programs specifically for the disability or people with disabilities population. However, they are welcome to join the programs that we do have. It's no, we don't discriminate against somebody with a disability and say you can't join this program. You'll be eligible to join any program that we have here. I hope I answered that question. Okay, any other questions? I want to thank you all for allowing us to talk about Job Corps. And if you have additional questions, you can call me at the number on the slide. It's 202-868-7515. Thank you all. Have a great day and a great weekend, everybody.
Thank you so much, Khalil, for
Thank
presenting.
you.
I am sure folks are presentationed out. We just have one more presentation for you guys, and we'll wrap this up. My name is Crystal Thomas, and I'll be presenting on our World Cafe as soon as we get our slides up. So thanks to everyone who participated in our World Cafe back in July. Yes.
I just want to have Catherine change her settings. Catherine, if you go to the top to this setting and just switch it from presenter view.
There we go.
Is that better? Sorry about that.
Excellent, excellent. Again, my name is Crystal Thomas, and I work with the State Office of Policy Planning and Innovation here at DDS. And with me is Catherine Reinhardt Mello. And we will very quickly go through these slides and share just an overview of our World Cafe back in July. So we brought together job seekers, folks with disabilities, family members, service providers, advocacy organizations, and other partners within the district. And just a quick overview of a World Cafe. It is a structured conversational process for knowledge sharing in which groups of people discuss several different topics in small groups. And so we use this creative engaging format to collectively discuss ways to improve employment outcomes for district residents with disabilities. We brought together about 70 people. Again, it included job seekers, folks with disabilities, family members, service providers, state agencies. Next slide, please. And for those who attended, this is just a quick overview of this slide that was presented at our welcome at the World Cafe. Disability employment by the numbers. Here in the district, the employment rate was 33.2% for working age people with disabilities and 83.8% for folks without disabilities. And working age is 16 to 64 years old. The national rate in the US is 39.2% for people with disabilities and 80.7% for folks without disabilities. Next slide. And so employment by the numbers. Here at DDA, almost all working age individuals have an employment related goal. And all working age individuals engage in discovery assessments. So 147 people in supported employment services are employed, and that's out of 331 people. And in RSA, as of July, we served 5,514 people, and 449 are employed year to date. And this includes folks with ID, autism, mental health. Next slide. At the cafe, we had 4 panels, and this included 4 questions that the panels discussed and explored. Next slide. And so the first was Partners Reimagined. So we had RSA, we had our Sylvia Charles discuss with, who else did we have? We had ABM, one of our partners, discuss just an overview of the services and resources, and also discuss other existing partnerships with DC government to include both private industries and the federal government. Next slide. So the second panel discussed taking charge of your job search. And we had vocational counselor partnered with Khalil Muhammad, who discussed Job Corps. And also we had a representative from the National Federation of the Blind, and really discussed advocacy and taking charge of your job search. Next slide. Engaging diverse communities. So currently right now, we are doing a lot of outreach. We just recently had our Latinx conference, doing outreach with the Ethiopian Eritrean community. On this panel, Mark Augusto, along with Allison White, discussed their efforts within the other underserved community. We had a representative from the Ethiopian and Eritrean community discuss her experience as a board member coordinating family supports in the community. And one of the highlights of that conversation was the importance of building trust. Next slide. Customized employment. So our panelists, Rebecca Salon, along with Sandra Conley, discussed customized employment and current projects. And it really makes the connection between the job seeker to where employment could occur. Also creating a vision of where the job seeker might be at their best in a setting that really focuses on the individual's preferences and strengths. Next slide. So after the panelists, we transitioned to our cafe, where we explored those 4 questions. And we were very intentional with making sure that folks at the table were diverse folks from different perspectives. And we asked just different questions. And an example is like who's missing from the conversation and what's needed to build trust. So those were just some of the questions that we examined. Next slide. And again, thanks to all who provided feedback. We received so much feedback and recommendations. We noticed just the overlap, and what we did was, after receiving the feedback, we created themes. And Catherine will discuss the themes as well as possible recommendations for next steps. And I will hand it over to Catherine.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Catherine Reinhardt Mello, new to the SAPI unit at DDS. So as Crystal said, we pulled out some themes from those table discussions where people had an opportunity to discuss each of the topics and come up with their top 3 recommendations. So we put these together that were cross recommendations, things that just stood out. So one of the themes was making sure that people had opportunities for discovery and career exploration. So some examples of the recommendations that people talked about: working with youth and job seekers who may not have had a significant work history to identify some of their skills and their strengths, starting with independent living tasks that they were able to do independently. And also looking at personality traits that could be an asset to employers. More recommendations centered around youth and adults with disabilities having many opportunities and experiences to help them expand their skills and to determine which environments and which tasks work best for them. And the cafe participants also emphasized in their recommendations the need to review skills and experiences that the person has gained on a regular basis, and then review and potentially revise their career trajectories if they have priorities that have changed as they've gained these experiences. All right, so another theme was talking about employment early and often. So we had one group that recommended that youth as young as elementary school should have the opportunity to do some discovery and career exploration. They also recommended that we engage with parents across the district and talk with them early about some success stories of young people with similar backgrounds that may live in their communities, and make sure that we use those examples that match the target audience that we're doing outreach to. And one of my favorite quotes around this part was a recommendation that one group came up with. That was to encourage children with disabilities and their families to dream big about what kind of career they might like to have, and that schools and DDS and other partners should be very intentional about inclusion and participation, like career days and other career-focused activities throughout their school experience and their youth. Several tables also discussed the importance of making sure that we're engaging diverse communities and schools that may help families see themselves in some of those experiences and picture their young person being able to be employed and to have those expectations. Third theme, connecting with employers and marketing individual strengths. Some of the discussion about that was to make the business case for customized employment and really highlight the success stories from the employer's perspective. Another recommendation was making sure that people have opportunities to practice activities like filling out applications and interview skills so that they can feel comfortable and they can feel confident when they're interacting with employers. Additionally, thinking about non-traditional ways like video resumes to demonstrate a person's skills to potential employers. And finally, helping people think about their personal and family networks for making connections with employers during their job search, as well as looking at the partnerships that DC government has. And so this could include just people you interact with in day-to-day activities like faith communities, going to the grocery store to get your hair cut, and that those people are all part of your network. All right, fourth theme, opportunities for mentorship. So one of the things that stood out from a recommendation that I heard at a table I facilitated was that one person or a couple people really said, you know, I have a lot of skills and things that I learned how to do, and I could share those with another person and to help them learn to do those things too. So we heard recommendations about helping people make connections with self-advocacy groups too, to be part of a supportive community and to gain some opportunities to connect with mentors who could help them build self-advocacy skills and confidence, and potentially help them learn some leadership skills for any folks that had interested in that too as well. And additionally, we got recommendations for more formalized mentorship focused on the job search itself, as well as mentorship on the job to support a person in learning their job skills and tasks, as well as integration into the workplace. All right, we got using technology to support employment. And I'll note that this did come up before. We had a great Tech Fest event a few weeks before. So participants at the World Cafe discussed ideas for using tech for some of the assessment pieces and interest pieces, and for people using tech to complete tasks and inventories on the job. And generally the recommendations were that we should be embracing technology to support people in getting and keeping jobs. All right, making DC government a model employer, whether this is hiring practices, workplace culture, customization. Our cafe participants recommended that the DC government should start with ourselves and be able to speak from experience as an employer, as we're asking other employers to change their hiring practices to be more inclusive. All right, so with all of those recommendations and themes in mind, these are a few areas that we thought we may be looking at for goal development. So considering increases in some initiatives currently in practice, we do have some partners and partnerships with people doing some great work. So we may need to expand on some of those. And increasing outreach and communication. We also heard that some people may not know about some of the resources and opportunities. And we may be looking at different ways of getting resources and information into all 8 wards and ensuring that that's accessible to diverse communities. Coordinating with partner organizations. We'll be looking at partnerships and coordination of supports that are going well already, and think about the ways that we may expand those. And we certainly are investigating new resources and partnerships that may address the recommendations as well. And for training and informed choice, similarly, we're considering ways to help people to develop job search skills.
Sorry, this should be done by now.
Oops, as well as specific job skills that will help them meet the needs of employers. We're also considering ways to make sure that people get information about career pathways and training opportunities, like Khalil shared, so that they can make informed decisions about the careers that they'd like to pursue. So next steps for us. We are working on a report on the cafe recommendations, and then we'll be engaging with strategic partners to consider potential projects or activities that would help to address the recommendations that we got from the cafe participants. And with our partners, we'll develop specific goals and action steps, and then we'll be back in front of this group and others to present the full report and our follow-up goals and action steps. So again, we appreciate all the participation and the feedback from cafe participants, panelists, table hosts, and everybody else that helped us put the event together, and look forward to continuing to collaborate to create pathways to opportunities. So we ran through that, but if we have any time at all, we can answer a question.
And we have no time.
Okay.
2 minutes, guys, but I did leave my email in the chat box. Happy to jump on a call or respond to any questions. But I do want to honor the time.
All right.
All right. So thank you, everyone, and we'll talk to you next month.
Thank you.